What encouraged you to participate in the FOM events and share your knowledge with others?
Sure. Well, I'm an obsolescence manager in Cymer. So for me, it's real critical to get updated every year, right? So best practices in this industry is getting obsoleted every year, no pun intended. But that's kind of the nature of this industry. There's so many things happening. There's also no playbook, so to speak. So I have to constantly, interact with people from different parts of the industries and learn from each other and collaborate. So I think it's very critical for our line of job. And besides that, it's the biggest obsolescence event on the west coast of the United States this year. So I definitely wouldn't want to miss that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So if it comes to obsolete, why do you think obsolete become such a hot topic these days?
Well, I think obsolescence is not the most glamorous topic, but it's a very important topic. So most people don't get excited when they talk about obsolescence, and most people view obsolescence management as a necessary evil. But I think I'm personally real passionate about obsolescence because I think it touches so many parts of the business, at least for us. Because if we don't have parts, if we don't have continuity of supply, no matter how good our technology is, we won't be able to serve the customer. So it's a real important topic.
So what would you think is the biggest threat to the security of the supply chain?
Well, I think these days, my observation is that we're kind of seeing the second wave of the increase in the parts obsolescence in the last probably decade. So the first wave was 6 to 7 years from now. When that started, it was mostly driven by compliance, regulations. So those are easier to address, to find a lead-free part, which is typically a drop-in replacement. But this new wave is driven by mergers and acquisitions. And my observation has been the complexity of parts have been increasing. So instead of finding a RoHS replacement, now we have to worry about redesigning a board, which takes 2 years instead of 2 minutes.
Yeah.
So that's what I view as the biggest threat.
So in a perfect world, you would buy everything, only official channel. There would never be shortages.
Mm-hmm.
But in reality, you have to deal with the open market and quite a lot. What would you think would be the best practices to work effectively with the open market?
That's a great question. I think obviously the first priority should always be to plan ahead and avoid going to the open market and go to the authorized distributor directly, like Arrow. That's a given. But as you shared, nobody's perfect. We are not perfect. Our suppliers are not perfect. The component manufacturers are not perfect. So you heard this morning, 40% of the parts were discontinued without notice. So even if we were perfect, we will still get surprised, let alone we're not. So I think it's important first to embrace the idea there's always a need to go to the open market. And then once you realize that, I think the next best thing to do is to get ready, to have a strategy. I think the most important strategy for dealing with the open market is to have a relationship with the partner in the open market. This is a kind of a partnership built based on trust, because you can never tell if a broker or an independent distributor is trustworthy by the PowerPoint or by a visit from the sales guy. You can only establish that trust by the track record. So you work with the independent guys You learn the way of working with them. You observe how they protect you from counterfeit risk. Are they savvy in leveraging the industry standards to test counterfeit risks? And have they actually, found counterfeit parts? Have they rejected counterfeit parts? So there's a lot of questions you sort of have to work with the partners, to evolve and sort of establish this relationship. It's not something you can just go off from a checklist and see, Converge is good, this other guy is not good. It's all based on relationship,
Yeah.
and track record.
How do you think innovation can play a part in obsolescence management?
I think, as I shared earlier, in obsolescence management, there are some standards like SD22 or IEC standards. People, have been dealing with this for decades, especially in the A&D industries. But there's really no set ways. There's no playbook, so to speak. There's no, you don't get a PhD in obsolescence management, right?
Yeah.
So it's a kind of an obscure kind of discipline or job function. So it's real important to learn from each other and constantly innovate. Otherwise, if you stay stale, you get washed away by the new wave of changes.
So, if we're talking about the community, how do you see the importance of having such a community like the FOM community come together and share ideas and best practices? And what would be your expectation from such a community?
I think that's real critical. As I shared earlier, collaboration. I'm a big fan of collaboration, and that's how I gather, I would say, more than 60-70% of my job knowledge is through collaboration with people outside of my company, because there's no playbook, right? So I have to learn from people in the defense industry. For example, we learned from the Air Force guys to use the AVCOM tool to monitor obsolescence risk, which has been a game changer for us. So having a community really helps. Last night it was funny. I was sharing with my colleague from Cymer that it's, you don't see every day people sitting around a table having some good food and drink some wine and talk about obsolescence. So that just doesn't happen every day. So people are busy working on innovation, new technology, new products, but to have people passionate about obsolescence and actually focus on talking about obsolescence and sharing knowledge about obsolescence is vitally important. If nothing else, it gives people a sense, there are peoples out there that share the same passion, and that's real critical for collaborative learning.
It's really interesting. This is one of the things that came almost from everyone, is saying we just understand that we are not alone and we share the same problem.
Yeah, exactly.
How do you see the future of obsolescence management? What are your fears and hopes, expectations?
Sure. So I think obsolescence is the need for obsolescence management is going to increase, and my prediction is it's going to kind of catch people off guard. We're already seeing, the semiconductor capital equipment industry like us, paying a lot more attention to obsolescence management. My hope is through collaboration, people like me can learn from people from A&D and vice versa. And people from different industries can collaborate with each other and refine the best practices. The best practices are getting improved every year, every day. So as a good example, we're looking into a lot of the aftermarket supplies, right? My biggest fear is I will not be innovating. I'll be standstill and I'll be washed away by the next wave. But I'm confident if I keep coming to FOM every year, I'll be okay.
Jerry Liu, thank you very much.
Thank you.
It's been a pleasure.